Morning, all. All right, so we have 4 games tonight in the National Hockey League, and then we have some news over here for all you fine people for your Wednesday, January the 11th. So we have games scattered throughout, and then we have 2 early games and 2 late games tonight. Starting with 7 Eastern, 4 Pacific, the Washington Capitals in against Philadelphia. This is the third of 4 meetings. Washington's won the first 2. November 23rd, they won 3-2 in overtime. December 7th, it was a 4-1 win. This is the start of a back-to-back as well. They will meet again on Saturday, January the 14th. So for the Capitals, they're 23, 14, and 6, playing very well. Last 10 games are 7, 1, and 2, and they're healthy. They're 1 point back of the New York Rangers. They're 4 points ahead of the Pittsburgh Penguins. So both of those teams won last night. Washington trying to keep pace. And Philadelphia is going to present a little bit of a challenge here. Now, A, they're at home, and B, 16, 18, and 7 may not sound great, but their last 10 games are 6 and 4. They've won 5 out of 6. And so Philadelphia is playing some of their best hockey right now. They're 9 points back of Pittsburgh. Their odds of making the playoffs haven't gotten appreciably better, but that's not really the point. The point is your coach is John Tortorella. He wants the best out of you no matter where you're sitting in the standings. So for the Caps, get to an early lead and then try to keep that going. 7:30 Eastern, 4:30 Pacific, the Toronto Maple Leafs at home against the Nashville Predators. Toronto can't take Nashville lightly either. Nashville's goaltending has been stealing them games. So this is the first of 2 meetings. They'll meet again March the 26th. If you're a Leafs fan, there will be no Austin Matthews tonight. He has some sort of an ailment. They're not saying a whole lot about it, other than he won't be in the lineup. McMahon will be in, making his NHL debut instead, so that's a good story. Reading up on McMahon, it sounds similar. It's not the same, but it sounds similar to Alex Burrows when he came up and joined the Canucks. Really good story of a guy fighting his way through various leagues and levels, and here he is. So for the Nashville Predators, 19, 14, and 6 is their overall record. Their last 10, they're 7, 1, and 2. Their last 3 games, goaltending has really brought them to those wins. They are now 1 point behind Edmonton and St. Louis, who are tied for that last playoff spot in the West. So if Nashville wins tonight, and if the Oilers lose, especially if they lost in regulation, well, Nashville's above the playoff line. On the Toronto side, they're 25, 9, and 7 overall. Last 10 games are 6, 3, and 1. They're 11 points behind Boston. They're 6 points ahead of Tampa Bay. So they're pretty safe in second place there in the Atlantic and likely stay that way as well. Then we get to the late starts, 10 o'clock Eastern, 7 o'clock Pacific, the Edmonton Oilers in against Anaheim. December 17th, Anaheim won this matchup 4-3. So don't assume anything because Anaheim's had their share of upset victories lately. Also, these teams will meet on April the 1st as well as April the 5th. Edmonton's 21, 18, and 3 overall. Their last 10, they've been a mediocre 4, 4, and 2. They're now 2 points behind Calgary, who keep pegging off points. And as said, they are tied with St. Louis. They're above the playoff line, but they need to get it together because St. Louis right now looks like they want it. On the Anaheim side, they're 12, 25, and 4. Last 10 games are 4, 5, and 1. They're coming off that embarrassing loss against the Boston Bruins. Now, I did do a video, like I think it was 4 years ago, something along those lines, where I pointed out that teams that have those embarrassing losses very often will end up bouncing back and getting victories the next game. So you can't look at that 7-1 loss and go, well, clearly what's going to happen tonight is Edmonton's going to go in and stomp them too. Because not necessarily, even though for Anaheim they're 17 points back of back of Edmonton and St. Louis. They're not behind themselves. As rough as this season's been, Anaheim's not behind themselves. 10 Eastern, 7 Pacific start between San Jose and LA. San Jose should feel pretty good coming off that win last night against Arizona. But LA's won both meetings. This is the third and final meeting. It was November 25th that LA wins 5-2. On December 17th, it's a 3-2 shootout victory for LA. For San Jose, they're 13, 21, and 8 overall. Their last 10 games are 3, 5, and 2. They are 11 points back of Edmonton and St. Louis at this stage. The LA Kings 24, 14, and 6. Their last 10 games are 7, 2, and 1. They're 2 points behind Vegas. Now, they've played more games than Vegas. Basically, for LA, they've played more games than everybody that they're chasing, that they're ahead of, and so they just need to keep winning. But yeah, they're 2 points back of Vegas and 2 points ahead of Seattle as the top 3 in the Pacific really start to tighten up. That means that Seattle's 4 points out of first place in the division. So, yeah, things are tightening up. Let me know in the comment section below who you believe will be the winners from these 4 games. And now we move on to news of the day. The NHL passes the halfway mark tonight for the overall schedule. As somebody who's trying to cover every game, all right, sounds about correct. And it's funny how it'll just sort of come upon you. Like the other day, I don't remember which game it was, but I went, wow, this team's at 40 games. This team's at 40 games. We're like halfway through the year. And so it does sneak up on you. And again, as I've mentioned too, this is sometimes called the dog days of the season, and that it can be tough. You're far enough out from the start of the season that any lingering adrenaline from that's gone. You're not close enough to the end of the season that you're really that concerned with standings necessarily. And so it can, there are some teams, especially at the top of the league, which may go through their struggles. Look at what Carolina's going through right now. We know Carolina's going to pull out of that. It can happen where you're in the middle of January, and yeah, that can definitely happen. Also, near record in terms of multi-goal comebacks. So far, there have been 81. I think all those are the Canucks somehow. But at any rate, that's 12% of the games so far have been multi-goal comebacks. It seems to settle down, and then we have a night like last night where there's a bunch of them again. So we'll see if that trend continues. As said, it's near a record. The way the NHL put it was, it's close to, it's in the range of a record. Doesn't sound like it's an actual record, because if it is, then the NHL will have that stat and all the whatever up there. So we'll see if that continues. It is an interesting time in the National Hockey League. It never feels like a team is really out of it, especially if they're losing to the Canucks. So 6-game winning streak for the Seattle Kraken. They've gone on a nice winning streak. There have been some wins you could point out in there and say, well, of course they're going to beat that team, but that's not the point. I kept reading all summer about how Seattle was a trash team. I remember, I think it was after they signed Burakovsky, and there were a couple others that get signed, and pointing out that they weren't in any kind of cap trouble, but they were close to the cap. And seeing, it's criminal, this team's terrible, how they can be close to the cap. This is just absolute mismanagement. The NHL should step in. Like, just ridiculousness like that. I think they've played pretty well. But this is the same sort of thing that was said before the Vegas Golden Knights played their first game. This is a terrible team. This is going to be awful. This is awful. There's no way they're going to support this team. And then they went to the Stanley Cup final, so it's almost as if the whole offseason and grading who wins or doesn't win the offseason doesn't matter. But anyways, yeah, good on Seattle. They've outscored their opposition 26-10. Not too shabby. The Pittsburgh Penguins. So this is a good story that I didn't get to cover yesterday, and I didn't just squash it into the news video I did yesterday because I didn't feel like that gives it enough time. So Chris Letang, of course, who lost his father. The decision was made for the Pittsburgh Penguins to travel to Montreal at 4 a.m. In order to be there for their teammate for his father's wake. I cannot describe how amazing that is of the Pittsburgh Penguins to do that. So as a non-Pittsburgh Penguins fan, I will say it is this kind of thing that guys like Crosby, Malkin, and others will do for each other. I will give them their due. And this is a team that, these guys truly care about each other. Clearly, Letang's a really important part of the team, and that's just great. And they do that, and they still have the energy to come back from multi-goals behind last night in a game. And that's the kind of thing that can galvanize a team, right? You can rally around something like that, where you say, all right, so we're going to dedicate this to your dad now. We're going to dedicate this win to Chris Letang's dad, that kind of thing. So we'll see what it does for the team. We'll see how long Letang is out, but it has to feel good for him to know that he's cared about by his teammates that much. He would have understood if they didn't go there. You don't expect your teammates to hop on a plane at 4 a.m. and jet over to Montreal for a wake, but they did it. And kudos to the team as well for helping them out with that. And it's just great, and it really shows how important he is to the city of Pittsburgh and to his teammates. And so I think this is only a good thing. And so that's just great that they were all able to be there. So that being said, the All-Star coaches came out today, and it is odd. And right away when I saw the graphic, I went, well, that's weird. So the division leaders, end up sending their coaches to the All-Star game unless the coach says, I'm not doing the All-Star game. So Bruce Cassidy is up there from Vegas. Pete DeBoer is up there from Dallas. Jim Montgomery's up there from Boston. And Rod Brindamore, of course, from Carolina. Bruce Cassidy last year coached the Bruins. Jim Montgomery recently coached the Dallas Stars. Pete DeBoer recently coached the Vegas Golden Knights. And there you are. 3 of the 4 are new coaches, and they've all coached one of the other teams that is currently leading a division. So it basically says if you want to lead your division, recycle a coach or get Rod Brindamore. That's basically it. But yeah, I thought that was interesting looking at that because these guys really. I would be interested in seeing the 3 of them just sit at a table and compare notes. Hey, you're in Vegas now. How's it for you? It's been great. How was it for you? Not so great. That kind of thing, you know. But at any rate, kudos to them on getting named to the All Star game. Again, you know, I'll be in Disneyland when the All Star game's on, so you know, I hope it's a great game. I hope it's fun for everybody. But I'm taking it as a way to have some time off and enjoy some time with family and such. So yeah, All Star game coaches are there. So last night, the Vancouver Canucks had a meltdown against Pittsburgh, which was highly predictable because when they get a 3-goal lead in the first period, it is predictable they're going to lose that. As soon as that first goal goes in, it's done. And the advanced stats and the eye test, if you're really paying attention, would tell you that the Vancouver Canucks may very well have had the worst defensive game last night in the National Hockey League's season. Not the Canucks season, which is already a high enough bar, but in the National Hockey League. So they compared the stats. The advanced stats compared the 67 shots that were allowed by Nashville to the game that was played by Vancouver last night. Vancouver stats end up worse. That Spencer Martin allows 5 goals, and the advanced stats say he saved more than a goal above what he should have in that game. So that just shows you that they were allowing a lot of really high danger chances. They were basically just peppering the goalie. And this is something that I noticed about the Canucks over a decade ago, which was nowhere near as bad as this, but it used to really frustrate me how the Canucks shots always seemed to be from the point. They were always from around the edge. And yet when they played against, say, I don't know, Chicago, all of Chicago's shots seemed to be from the slot and 3 feet from Luongo's face. And then after you'd hear, well, Crawford saved 40 and Luongo couldn't save 20. And it's like, yeah, well, Crawford's were from space. So the pucks are a little easier to anticipate when you have about 20 minutes to make the save. Luongo's were 100-mile-an-hour slap shots from about here. So it's apples to oranges. But at any rate, this team apparently, it's something defensively. And it's not just going to be on the players. Like, it's not a situation where I look and go, well, they'll just blow up all the defense and who cares and get rid of them. This also does reflect on coaching. It reflects on your defensive coach. It does reflect on the head coach. It does reflect on Boudreau. I'm a fan of Boudreau, but that kind of a game definitely does reflect back on him on some level as well. So let me know your thoughts in the comment section below as always. Don't forget to hit like and subscribe if you're browsing your way through, you just happened upon this video. Thank you guys so much for watching, for all your support. I will talk to you again soon.